Hi everybody, this is PsyonicReaver. Also today with me today is Louder LighT, and go ahead and say hi, Louder.
Hi.
And Louder is going to help me commentate on the Team LighT King of the Hill series. This is Game 2 between Sadist and Gretorp, and I sincerely apologize to everybody out there. It's been about a week, a little bit more than a week since these games were played. I have not seen them. I don't really know exactly what's going to happen because I've been sick and I've been working a lot. So again, I sincerely apologize for not getting these games up a lot sooner, and that's why Louder's here. He's kicking me in the butt, getting me in shape, and we're going to go ahead and get these done for everybody. And just a recap on the last game, it was on the Othello between these two players, and Sadist won out over. It was like a 45-minute battle. It was just a long battle. Great play by both players, but eventually Gretorp lost in the end. He just didn't have the tank count to keep up with Sadist. And now we see that Gretorp is actually playing as the Protoss, the yellow Protoss here at the bottom left-hand corner. We'll say that's the 7 o'clock location, up against Sadist, who's chosen to remain as the Terran as white Terran in the top left-hand corner. And again, the map is Longinus. And Louder, can you tell me a little bit about Sadist's play on Longinus? Is there a special strategy that he likes to employ that you know of as a Protoss player?
I've known Sadist for probably 7 years now, and his playstyle has never really changed. He's a very safe player, and he has great macro. He's one of those players that always has more units than you expect. So I would just look for pretty normal play from him. I would expect to see him play safely until he has 2 expansions, and then attempt to walk up those ramps into the middle of the map with a lot of tanks.
Now, we can see Gretorp harassing the SCVs here, just trying to do whatever he can to split the Terran's multitasking capabilities. And that's one thing, if you just let a Terran do what he wants to do and just multitask how he wants to multitask, then it's very easy for him to get his timings down correctly and to get his buildings down on time and to really just do a nice timing push against you, especially as a Protoss player. It's all about timing pushes. So Gretorp trying to harass a little bit, just trying to throw Sadist's timing off a little bit. Not really going to happen. Sadist, I've watched a lot of his games, especially in the Yankee League. He's just always spot on with a lot of his timings and a lot of his pushes. But one thing that I'm kind of curious about is usually I see a lot of players, Terran players, wall off their natural so they can secure that second base easier. But this strategy, Sadist has decided to not go for that wall at all. And is this something that he normally does? Because this is my first time watching him on Longinus.
I've never actually played him on this map, but I do know that he very often forgoes the wall and just relies on his micro. A funny thing to note there is that he will be the first person to tell you that his micro is horrible, but if you watch him play, he actually has really good unit control. And I've never been able to successfully do much against him whenever he's cocky and doesn't wall, so no, it's not a surprise.
So relying on the micro. And I was going to say I'm going to have to agree with you on his micro. Of all the games I've commentated on, like I said, all of his builds, his execution, everything's just always spot on, and he's a very, very solid Terran player, and I'm actually surprised that we don't see him a lot more in competitions and for World Cyber Games and things like that. But maybe next year, Mr. USA semi-finalist, right?
I wouldn't expect it. He's pretty indifferent about playing StarCraft competitively. He's one of those guys that he's always talking about quitting, but he never quits. He was interested in doing World Cyber Games this year. He would have been in the same preliminary as the one that Hydra and Machine played in, and that was kind of a screwed up prelim because, as you know, Machine ended up having to pay his way to travel and play at the LAN, while Hydra got to play online. And Sadist was a little irritated with the arrangement and just didn't want to have to pay his way out there. And then, as you know, the trip to the finals, they reimburse you a little bit, but it's still somewhat expensive to go out as a player. So I think that discouraged him a lot. But, he's one of those guys that has a lot going on in real life. He doesn't really play as much StarCraft as you would expect him to for his skill level. But he always manages to impress me with how good he can be after not playing for 3 or 4 months, and he just comes on and starts tearing people up.
And now we can see Gretorp trying to do a little bit of scouting with that probe there, trying to see if there's an expansion up. And actually it looks like Sadist was expecting maybe some kind of DT harassment, since he didn't get any sort of harassment from Gretorp. No Goon harassment or anything like that. You can see Sadist actually prepared very, very well for Dragoon harassment because of his lack of a wall. A lot of Protoss players, when they see no wall, they think, oh, I'm going to go all in Dragoon and just try to just overrun the Terran because he didn't wall. But Sadist actually prepared for that very, very well. And not having that Dragoon harassment come his way, he decided to go ahead and get that engineering bay and get that turret up just in case of maybe some kind of cheese heading his way. Not going to happen, though. You can actually see he's saving the minerals, going to put down that command center. He's going to see that the expansion is up for Gretorp, and he is going to be a little bit behind. So what Sadist needs to do in this time is try to harass Gretorp as best he can. He needs to try to cut down Gretorp's economy a little bit, or if Gretorp tries to move out to take his third base, try to hit him then with a kind of a timing push to punish him, because right now Gretorp is pulling slightly ahead, having that expansion up before Sadist. And there actually is a Dark Templar in the field. So what would you recommend Gretorp doing at this time, or even Sadist? I mean, is Sadist just pretty much going to just have to contain actually, okay, he is going to try to contain. Got a missile turret going up right there, but there is a Dark Templar in the middle of the field. I don't know how he's going to get siege tank down there without it getting sniped off.
I would have liked to have seen him make a starport instead of a second factory, because having seen Dark Templar, he would know that a vulture drop could be effective. I think as far as Gretorp's play goes, he really just needs to maintain his lead. He needs to get observers, which he's doing, and move out and take another expansion or two, and just play safely to make sure that he maintains the economic advantage, and obviously to avoid getting torn up by any kind of vulture harassment.
We can see that Sadist is actually coming up to set up a contain right outside of Gretorp's base. Gretorp sending some zealots, trying to get those spider mines to go off and take out some of those units. Weren't able to make it all the way. That one spider mine was able to nail those two zealots before they got too far. Now Gretorp is going to be in a little bit of trouble here, because Sadist is going to start reinforcing constantly to that containment area. And I think Gretorp, he put those pylons up in his natural expansion to try to prevent vultures from running by, but that's actually going to start working against him now, because as he tries to run out with his army to engage Sadist, it's just going to bottleneck him more, and those siege tanks are just going to be able to just tear him apart. So Gretorp could potentially be in a lot of trouble. He's got the Stargate up, I'm sorry, and he's got the Arbiter Tribunal. I think Arbiters are going to come a little bit too late to stop this push from Sadist, and he's going to need shuttles to help him get those zealots in close enough to drop on those siege tanks, or at least get zealot speed going, which I don't know if he is. Yeah, it's almost done, actually.
I actually think he's going to be fine from this. You know, Sadist really doesn't have a lot of reinforcements coming, and you'll notice that he's mostly making tanks and sending tanks, when he's going to really need a lot of spider mines to be able to stop steady 4-gate zealots coming out trying to break his container. Actually, more than 4 now. Looks like we're going to be at 7 gates pretty soon.
So in your kind of position, if you were in this position as a Protoss player, is all you'd be doing right now is macroing up just pure zealot and just try to overwhelm the Terran force because of his lack of vulture and mine placement?
Yeah, you have a really good timing window to build up a pretty big force of zealots here, because he knows that Sadist expanded a lot later than he did. And so this containment is not the result of a fast expansion into a timing push. It's the result of, a very slow expansion build that got a fairly slow second factory. So he should be aware that, if he makes enough units, he can get out, but he has to do it pretty quickly, and he has to, like he's doing now, he has to continue to try to break up these tanks that get a little too close.
And great job by Gretorp. They're able to pick out that siege tank that was just a little bit too close to that wall, using that observer to spot for him. Has to be careful not to lose that observer, though. Every observer counts, especially when you have to try to rush in with all of your forces. You need as many observers as possible to, so that way when a turret takes out one, obviously you still have another one there to help spot for those spider mines as you try to break out. Now it looks like Sadist actually has a nice setup here. with his vultures and his siege tanks in a nice semicircle formation. That will tear apart any dragoons that try to move out into the middle of the map.